welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. My name is Luening, Horst Luening. This is my son Ben, and today we have a closer look at Highland whiskies.
Yes, today we have another regions tasting, and as you mentioned, it is the Highlands region tasting. For the Highlands, we actually selected 3 Highland single malts, and we selected one from the north, Glenmorangie, one that is very, very high up at kind of southwest, isn't it? Dalwhinnie, middle southwest, and Tomatin as one of the ones with a sherry influence in it, and a bit of a younger one.
No.
Oh, younger distillery. The Glenmorangie is 50 years older from distillery, but yeah. So that's what we're going to try today, and the sequence we're going to try is the Glenmorangie has no influence of sherry whatsoever. It's a very, very mild and fruity one. The Dalwhinnie is a bit more spicy. We come to that, why that is later. And the last one, as I mentioned, has a bit of a sherry influence.
So this time you made the sequence, and I'm not quite sure, or I wasn't sure if the sequence was right, but after having it tasted the first time, the sequence is right. So, yeah.
So, the Highlands. We always have a look at the map at Scotland to find our region. So, let's have a look at the map. The map shows you these regions, and the Highlands is the biggest region of them all here in red. And we explicitly excluded the Speysides and also the Islands, as they're not part of the Highlands. When you look closer to the Highlands, you see they begin down at Campbelltown. Some people take Campbelltown as a separate region. It used to be a separate region. Now it's more or less included.
Yeah, this is discussable.
Is this
because
discussable? Yeah.
There had been, I think, 7 old regions in Scotland, and one of them was Campbelltown, and they are allowed to write Campbelltown single malt whiskey on its labels. So yes, it is one of the classic, but there are only 2, respectively 3 distilleries in the Campbelltown. So the Highlands and the Speyside is missing. And we personally does not make much difference between Speyside and Highlands, because the character is quite the same. But if you look at the regulations, then the Highland whiskies did include, for example, the Orkney Islands, which are omitted here. So for me personally, the Orkney Islands belong to the islands, so they do not belong to the Highlands. But from the taste and the old original, introduction, it was Highlands.
Yeah. Yeah, the specialty about the Highlands, if you exclude regions like Campbelltown, is a very, very remote region. And that's why they actually kept most of their culture, because they were kind of outside of the sphere of influence of the English. Because the English really influenced the Scottish with all the technology and everything coming up from England. And so the lowlands are really more English than the Highlands. And the Highlands are said to be a bit of a town of yokels.
Stones on you. They will put stones on you. They're Scottish.
They are
forever.
Scottish,
but the influence was higher. Yes.
Higher. And the Highlands, they're really, really more remote, and they're Highlanders. And that's kind of the characteristic of the Highlands. They are one of the most sparsely populated areas in Europe, and they still have a bit of a clan system, but their clan system is more like done in culture. It doesn't have any political influence anymore. So they get into their kilts and they celebrate, and that's quite nice. But a few of the cultural memberships or cultural clans formed, and they actually formed something called the Keeper of the Quaich.
Yeah,
And-
here we see Blair Castle, where the 2 annual meetings are held of the keepers of the Quaich. And, the keeper of the Quaich is, to say it just straight out and real, it's a lobbyism. So the main purpose is to spread Scotch whiskey all around the world and increase sales of it. And of course, you have to be an expert. You have to taste, to spread the news, everything. But in the end, it's all about selling. And the keeper of the Quaich were established from, I think it were 6 or 7 well-established companies, Scottish whiskey companies. And they started that in the time, I think, during the big British recession, when the sales were low, and they tried to increase that. And in the moment, we are still below 3,000, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and do we know one of the guys who is keeper of the Quaich? Yes, we do. You're keeper of the Quaich since when?
Yeah, I was introduced in March or April 2016.
Mhm.
And due to my tasting videos I'm doing here on YouTube, and this was the reason, because this increases sales of Scotch whiskey, and
Yeah,
therefore
it just
was
increases the
introduced.
reach of Scotch whiskey
Yeah.
a lot. Everybody knows these YouTube videos now, and everybody can learn about Scotch whiskey all around the world and find their way to get one of these bottles. And
So
that's
this
what
is one of
keeper
the very
Quaich wants.
very few pictures of me wearing a smoking and handcuffs and everything. So yeah,
Handcuffs? You mean cufflinks?
yeah, cufflinks. Sorry,
So,
it's cold in there. Yes, until you're had 2 whiskeys.
so the main part of the Scottish whiskey industry comes from the Highlands. Around 90 distilleries are now working in the Highlands, and one of these distilleries is Glenmorangie. And this is Glenmorangie. You see the red doors and the steam rising where they produce the steam for the production. And on the very left-hand side, you see the long, tall building, and that's the still room where all the stills are. And the stills are very, very tall, and they're the tallest stills in the Scottish industry. That's 5 meters and 14. Not quite sure how much that is in foot. I think it's something like 12 foot or something.
No,
16,
6,
16 foot.
yeah, 20,
15 foot.
15.
15 foot, 16 foot, something like that. But they are not typical pot stills for whiskey. They are actually used gin stills. So a few guys who built the distillery actually went down to London, got themselves 2 used gin stills, brought them up here to Tain, and built the Glenmorangie distillery. Today they built them to the exact specifications like the old ones, and now they have, how much are they? 10 of them?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, think so.
They added 2
Yeah,
lately.
and yeah,
And news, they built a second still house.
but we're not quite sure what is being done in the second still house. So they wanted to open it in 2020, but they postponed it. So yeah, let's try the Glenmorangie 10.
We go. It's priced between 30 and 40 wherever you live. It's 40% ABV, and it's a bourbon cask matured whiskey. And in former times, the Glenmorangie 10 years of age, it's called the original, was produced from 3 casks: first fill, second fill, and third fill. And several years ago, I think around the year 2000, they stopped filling the third time. So we typically see first and second fill bourbon casks.
Does anybody of you have the Glenmorangie 10 in your glass behind your screens?
Glenmorangie 10, very, very orangey. So what I have is this time, this is the second run we're going through this evening. And this time I have the citrus note in it. The Northern Highland distilleries, where Glenmorangie, north of Inverness, belongs to, are famous for its citrus notes, and this time I have it. Last time I had mostly the mint, and this time I have it again, and probably moving over to eucalyptus and fruitiness.
I like it.
Yeah,
it's a fresh, nice bourbon cask, but a little bit more fresh and fruity than your normal bourbon cask. So it's really more of a tropical fruit, fresh fruit thing going on. So there's a bit of a pineapple note in there. I get that, and yeah, a little bit of a citrus note as well.
Yeah, I do have peaches now, probably some apples. So there's definite fruity note, and in the back now vanilla appears and some caramel probably as well. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
In the start, it's a little, not weak, mild. Probably for the first sip you would like to have a little bit more than 40%. 43 would be better for the first sip. But as soon as you have swallowed that, the aftertaste with a decent oak note appears. It's not oak, it's a little spiciness, not too oaky, or a little spicy note, which quickly fades away and gives a wonderful mouthfeel, cladded. So it's a fruity introduction, a mild tongue feeling, and then having a little peak and then fading away in the aftertaste. So this is a dangerously sipping whiskey. So it's the maximum taste, the maximum kick is in the taste, and that's problematic. So if you have the most in the smell or in the aftertaste, but the most during swallowing, it's difficult. Yeah.
It's a really light, fruity, sweet, elegant, gentle, little bit not creamy, smooth whiskey. And as you said, it's a really good drinking whiskey. That really goes down easy. A little bit of dangerous there, as it might introduce you to a bit too much drinking. But so be careful when you drink your Glenmorangie.
Yeah, as Tobias Baldus said, Glenmorangie 10 still my favorite for everyday drinking. Please do not drink everyday whiskey.
Yeah, depends on if you have a glass like that every day, it's not that of a problem. If you have like half a glass of that every day, and every third day you meet some friends and you have a few, then that's okay. For most people. You should always have self-control when you enjoy whiskey.
Yeah, maltiness, mild. More vanilla now. Little more, so like, what's that? Nutmeg. A little bit of coconut. Now it's more nuttiness.
So when you swallow it, there's a bit more of a really influence of oak in it, and a bit of more spiciness. I like it. That's really a great introduction. It's a nice northern, very smooth whiskey. Glenmorangie has more whiskies. There is La Santa, Quinta Ruben. Quinta Ruben is with the port whiskey.
La Santa is with sherry, and the Nectar d'Or with Sauterne casks.
So they have
more.
They have a beautiful range of different cask finishes. Really, really nice. But now let's talk about the Highlands. So the Highlands, as I said, were kind of backwards and kind of like they have like the Highlanders, and that's because the English couldn't reach there. Why couldn't they reach there? Because they only had horses, and everything had to be transported via horse, and transporting stuff via horse is very slow and expensive and just
Tedious, everything,
not effective. So everything was transported short ways. So what did the people in the Highlands have? They had peat for firing their pot stills, and they had grain for making the whiskey. So there were small stills all over the Highlands, and they transported these the goods very short distances. And most of the warehouses were at very, very low grounds, and a lot of stills were at the coast, so they could transport it with ships. And that was it back in the days. And what's lovely is the Highlands very, very sparsely populated. So what came out as a cultural instrument of theirs, the loudest instrument in the world, yes, it's the bagpipe. The bagpipe is really, really, really loud. And so when you play it in the Highlands, it doesn't matter that much because there are not that many people that you can annoy.
Just sheep.
Just sheep. And it's also a very military used instrument. So every company of the Highlanders have their bagpiper. And so it's you can march to it. It's a wonderfully loud and annoying, fearsome instrument.
Yeah, therefore the pipers went in front of the troops going into
to scare the
battle.
enemies.
Yeah, to scare the enemies. And thank you for Bennett for $2.99. Thanks for all the reviews. Thank you for watching all our videos.
What is also a very nice place in the Highlands to visit is Loch Ness. Yeah.
There.
There is
Nessie.
Yeah, there is a monster going on in the Loch Ness. And so there is a rumor about a monster in Loch Ness. And here you see an old ruin of a castle that was standing next to Loch Ness. And the Highlanders had a very iconic sword. It's the Claymore sword. And the Claymore sword was a very huge sword. And it was said to be between 160 and 180 long. So that's meters. So that's around 6 foot. So it's a really huge sword. And that was before the 17th century. After the 17th century, the claymore became smaller and it was classified as a broadsword, and it had a cage around your grip, and it was used one-handed. But the Highlander sword, it's iconically the claymore sword. Isn't it from the Highlander? They also had a very big sword.
To kill a Highlander, you had to behead him.
There can only be one. And talking about battling and these claymore swords, there was the Battle of Culloden, 1746.
The Culloden Moor, and there the rebels fought against the troops, the regular troops, and Scotland already was united with the British with the English in the United Kingdom, and the rebels were against that. Bonnie Prince Charlie, and he was defeated there. He had only 2,700 troops, and the official regiment had 5,000. It was a massacre, and from that time on, the rebels were fought again, and they ended. The independence ended there.
So and from that time on, the Scottish kingdom didn't exist, and it became part of the British Empire, the United Kingdom of Scotland, Wales, and North England, and Northern Ireland. And that was a bit of a culture back.
Ireland.
Ireland.
Northern Ireland was a lot later, 1921.
And yeah, anyway, that was a bit of the culture about the Highlands, and now we move to the Dalwhinnie distillery. Here you see the Dalwhinnie distillery, and the Dalwhinnie distillery is also, it's said to be the highest distillery. When I was there, they said they are the distillery of the highest town with a distillery or something like that. So they are really, really high up there. If it's in winter, there is a lot of snow there, so it can be, there can be some weeks where they say they might run of raw material and they have to stop production because of the snow, but that rarely happens because they know and they have a bit of a bigger storage silo and they have good snow plows.
I think they are in 315, 20, 25 meters high, so close to 1,000 foot. And well, there are one or two distilleries which are higher, located with a higher altitude or elevation, and but the high elevation helps with maturing the whiskey because the differences in temperature between winter and summer is quite high, and this presses the air in and out of the casks. So this makes really a difference, and Dalwhinnie was located on that pass where the north-south connection in the Highlands, west of the Cairngorm Mountains, which is now a national park, is going through, and an east-westerly connection, which is not really there with big roads, but which was a trade route in former times, in the old centuries. And there they brought the quarter cask, the smaller cask, but with a mule, and there were the pubs, and they did their trading there, and therefore Dalwhinnie started to exist there. And later on, you can see the railroad behind the distillery. They built the railroad over the pass, but that's a story for later.
Yeah. So, the Dalwhinnie, it's a 15-year-old, and there is there any sherry influence in there?
I don't think so. It's a 43%. It's with the classic malts of Scotland, and it's one of the most often sold 15-year-olds from Scotland. And there are very few bottlings from Dalwhinnie out there. There's this one, the 15-year-old, as well as a distiller's edition, which is made with Oloroso sherry casks, a wonderful piece of work. But here we wanted to compare the entry whiskies of the distilleries. And there is how it's called, gold, or winter gold, winter gold, and a frost with the Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones they had a house edition, something like that, and they have the distiller's edition.
I talked about that.
I think I do have a distiller's edition somewhere, but can't find it.
Finished the last time.
And what is special about the Dalwhinnie is that the Dalwhinnie distillery, they use warm tubs. So they have really, really big tubs where they have a coil going through, and that liquefies the alcoholic steam back into the spirit. And that is a very different way of condensing your alcohol back into the liquid. Then you have the shell and tube condensers, and that gives the whiskey a bit of more kick.
So I do not often find it, but today I have the heather. There's definitely the heather, some herbs, and probably a hint, very hint of smoke. Yeah. So this is strong smell. Some fruits behind, a little sweetness coming through.
Yeah, I do have the heather as well. It's nice, and
Don't feel too too comfortable.
it has a heather, also some flower notes, some blooming. Feels a bit like spring, a little bit of honey, a little bit of a sweet note in there. Very pleasant, and not anything about that spiciness or that roughness that we usually get from these warm top coils.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
A honey note, a little bit of oiliness, a little bit of sweetness. Why did that move? A little bit of sweetness, vanilla, and as soon as you have swallowed, a little honeycomb. Long aftertaste, spiciness of the oak. This is 15 years of age. There has to be spiciness from the oak. Very good.
Now the flavor is much spicier than the smell. So in the flavor you do have some peppery notes, some oaky notes, some still a little bit of fruitiness, a little bit of that bloominess, that heather, that these flowers, honey. But it's generally, you realize it's more rough and tumble than the Glenmorangie.
Yeah, the stills are not that tall. They're not that slim. But the cask influence is bigger.
It's a nice Highland malt. It's amazing.
And also this whiskey is between 30 and 40, wherever you live. It's one of the very reasonably priced whiskeys, one of the cheapest 15-year-old you're able to buy. So the price-value relationship, if you would count that, is very good.
Yeah, I like it. It's a wonderful journey of a whiskey. It's a flowery and spicy whiskey. That's amazing mixture. So we mentioned this railroad.
I would like to have a little nap. Your new chairs are so comfortably, and my footrests is
It's amazing, right?
so we're a lot more relaxed than before.
Now we can do the 2-hour live streams and another 2-hour live streams. So yeah, but we mentioned the railroad that was going past behind the Dalwhinnie distillery, and that was introduced in the turn of the 1900s, and shortly later came electricity, and the industry just got a rise. You could transport fuel to the distilleries like coal, so you didn't have to always make peaty whiskey. You got much more casks to the distillery. It was easier to transport casks from them to the distillery. You could get your equipment there. It was just
major
the logistics.
leap forward.
It was a major leap forward, and of course you could transport the whiskey down to the lowlands, down to the docks, export it worldwide with the ships of the British Empire.
And from 1824, the legislation was allowed to produce whiskey in the Highlands, which was forbidden because the taxmen weren't able to collect taxes with the.
So the taxman had to get into the train.
The train and the carriage, they were able to go to the distilleries and collect the taxes.
So that was back in the days, and what you still see today, there's still some of these old steam tanks going through the mountains, and you find the Glenfinnan viaduct, or what's it in English? Viaduct in English? Don't know.
Bridge.
bridge. Yeah. So that's actually a pathway for the train, and that's very iconic and very famous. There have been a lot of films going on because it's just so scenic when you have the train going over that bridge.
I forgot.
Yeah, there was also that Harry Potter movie where the train was going on that.
The flying Morris or whatever that was.
The flying car, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the view from the car.
Yeah, this is the view from the car. Yeah, and now we come to the distillery that has been built by the turn of the 1900s, and that is the Tomatin distillery.
Yeah, so we had a picture dug out of my tens of thousands of pictures, but that was very industrial and didn't look very comfortably for the distillery, because the distillery was founded in 1897 by three Scottish guys, John McDougall, John McLeish, and Alexander Allen. And, well, after quite a time, the Japanese bought the company, they took over, and they expanded the distillery so that they had the maximum output of malt whiskey ever seen in Scotland by a distillery. So they had 2 rows of a dozen distilleries, or 12 and 11. And when I visited the distillery, I think it was in 1994 or 1995, all the distills were still in place. It was huge and big, and so, but within the Great British Recession, the distillery became smaller. They reduced the number of stills, and in the moment, I think they have 4 regularly operating and 2 or 4 more as a backup, and the rest of the stills went to the old copper, and they got money for the old copper, and now they are producing not the malt whiskey for the blending industry in Japan as they did before, but now they move more and more into single malt whiskey and into higher quality. And they introduce not only the single malt whiskies with an age statement on it, but they also have some very excellent finishing processes going on. And we had a live tasting with a representative of the distillery here. I think we were 3 in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had problems with the computer.
And so there he tells about what's going on in the distillery. There's the Kubokken as well, the very smoky whiskey from Tomatin. And Tomatin is pronounced as satin. So not Tomatin or something like that. It's Tomatin, like satin. Yeah, that's to say about Tomatin.
Yeah, let's have a try. So the Tomatin whiskey is the only one that has sherry cask in here.
And it's 12 years of age, 43% ABV, and it's the cheapest among them, just by €1. Don't know if it's the same in the region where you live. And it has the most exclusive bottle. So they built a new one for showing that now is a better content in it. Yeah. Sherry in it.
Again, went the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's I'll go back to the order you have.
This is a wonderful, aromatic, fruity, malty, sherry whiskey. No sharp influences, no big spiciness, just friendly and malty, sherry, dark fruity. I like it.
It's you do realize there is a sherry character in there. It's a wonderful potpourri of fruit. So it's really, you have the apples, you have a bit of a pear note, you have some dried fruits as well, and it's It's malty, fruity. Yeah, that's what a good Highland whiskey smells like. I like it.
Yeah. So, cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Gentle, but a little bit more of a kick, because the spiciness of the cask is there immediately, and so this one has a bigger kick than the other two. It's 43%. I'm sorry, where's the frog? It's cladding my mouth. There is the sherry influence on them. There's maltiness, the nuttiness from the sherry cask is there. Yeah, and a little apple, pears. Yeah, wonderful, complex.
It's a wonderful whiskey with a wonderful sherry influence, and it's a mixture between smooth and a little bit of spiciness as well, like oaky spiciness, and a strong influence of sherry of these. Yeah, again, apples, but there are more red fruits in there as well, grapes, some berries as well. A great mixture and a great variety of tastes.
Oh.
Wonderful whiskey.
And now Ben will tell a little bit more about transportation, and you might make up your mind in which sequence you like to have the quality of these whiskies rated. Yeah.
Okay, so we've had the old ages with the mules and the horses, and we had the steam era, steam trains and trains in general. And how is the whiskey transported nowadays? You can see it here. It's being transported with trucks, or as they say in Scotland, lorries. And yeah, so the casks are being transported to the distillery, and if you transport your cask from the distillery, it is done differently. So if you have single cask or smaller batches, or even medium batches, might be transported in trucks or lorries. So I think this one are empty casks that are just being unloaded. And if you have the big sellers, the big rotations,
the million sellers,
they are actually being transported in a tank truck, like this one here. So they actually fill the whiskey full in a tanker, and they ship it off to the bottling line. And at the bottling line, you have the small batches or the big batches, and then they all get bottled and labeled and put onto pallets and sent to the docks, and then sent internationally overseas or to the continent, or
So this picture was really difficult to select. So first we had a different truck that has the wrong writing on the tank and the wrong color. Then the second one we found, it was a tanker, and it was so dirty. And then we looked at the writings on the tanker, and they said pot ale. So it was the waste which they pumped into it.
Yeah, there are more than one tankers going out of the distillery.
And this one is now a real street tanker, and that picture was made at Glenmorangie itself.
Yeah, so back in the days, even in 1995, Glenmorangie had so much sales that they have to have tankers filled with whiskey going to the bottling line. But I think they are being filled with the cask strength spirit, because you can dilute it down at the bottling line. Yeah, so, and when they are in international shipping, you can go to your local stores and get this whiskey to taste with us in your living room. Yeah, that was it. Let's have the sequence. Which whiskey was the best one? So if the best one was the Glenmorangie, goes 1, 2, 3, or if you think Tomatin was the best, then 3, 1, 2, or something like that.
So the first time we had a run before in German language, and I had 1, 3, 2. But I thought before that the Dalwhinnie would be best choice. But this time I did not find that. This time,
Jeffrey,
I go
2, 3, 1.
2, 3, 1.
3, 2, 1, and clearly 1. For me, it's strange. Now I just had, I don't know. It's just the mood is very very influential for rating them. For me, it's clearly this one. I like the one best. So the Glenmorangie was the best. Then it was, I don't know. It's strange, but the Dalwhinnie and then the Tomatin, because I had the Tomatin in the first one. I had the best. So
this time it's 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. For me, it's 1, 2, 3.
1 had been the best in the first run. Now 3 is the best in the first run.
So we have 3, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So yeah.
So there is a. I would
they're
say
really close together.
Yeah,
they're really good, all of them.
Yeah, and I think it depends on what you had before.
Yeah.
If the whiskey is still able to bring a kick over another one. So in the moment my mouth is fully loaded with all those aromas, runs through that. So the relatively smooth and gentle Glenmorangie isn't able to overcome the other smells or tastes I have in my mouth.
So, but the whiskeys really have their own specialty. The Glenmorangie is dangerously sipping, smooth and fruity and nice. The Dalwhinnie is a perfect mixture between this spiciness, roughness,
and has one of the best price-value relationships.
Price value is very good and has that honey sweetness. So it's a good mixture between spiciness and sweetness. And the Tomatin is just a wonderful mixture between this sherry oloroso fruitiness and the sweetness that comes from bourbon and the distillery character. So they all have their own speciality, but you can rate them if you want to.
Yeah.
So do you want to do some questions? Or?
Jordi BCN, please give us a thumbs up if you like that video. Probably we are able to collect some, and only 25 likes. I see 45 likes.
Which water do they take for mixing with cask strength whiskey? I'm not quite sure if he was referencing the ones where we said the tanker goes off. Scotland has a lot of water sources, and there is a lot of Scottish water even going on, traveling down south to England, because they have so much water because it's so rainy in Scotland.
And it's granite. Most of Scotland is granite, so you have a very smooth water. There's no chalk in it.
So they probably, at the bottling station, they probably monitor the water, but the water is probably so good that they don't have to do anything to treat the water if they take it out of the regular sources, out of the regular well. How is your own whiskey cask doing?
Yeah, we have
nearly at the whiskey time. So we will start sending out little probes to our German customers, and then we have a tasting together with them when we have the whiskey. So
there will be live streams coming up next. The next one is on November 27th, where we are tasting Ireland whiskey. So we had Islay already. Now the other islands are coming up, and then we will have later on. So it's 3 weeks from now, and then later on we will have some tasting in the space side we left out today, and then we will have a surprise video, and then we have an entry video,
beginners
video, and there will be an expert video as well, but we do not have a exact date of that. So the beginners video is between Christmas and
Yeah.
New Year.
If you can't remember the dates and times and everything, then go to Whisky.com/live and you will find all the times and dates there. If you're on the desktop, you just go to the right side. There's all the dates written down there, and also all the whiskeys that we have in these tastings, so you can prepare yourself beforehand and try them with us together. If you're on the mobile phone, you just have to scroll down a little bit to find that. And yeah, so the next tasting will be on the 27th, as you mentioned, of November at 8 p.m. Central European Standard Time, or you just click on the YouTube video and it tells you when it is in your time zone.
So a few questions. I think, Welsh alcoholic, what did you guys have for lunch today? I had a schnitzel. A Wiener Schnitzel
I had
with
lasagna.
potatoes. You had lasagna. And afterwards I had, that's not toppable, it's crème Suzette.
A crêpe
Crêpe Suzette.
Crêpe Suzette. Nice.
Self-made. Great live tasting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on Finn Lagan? Well, this belongs to Isla.
Yeah, someone said in German that we have a little bit of a sound problem. Yes, there is a little bit of a sound problem. We're still hunting the problem, but we can't find the source. It's because of our new camera. The camera is really good quality, but the camera doesn't connect that well to the computer. So we're still getting to the bottom of the problem. Have you done Island yet? We did Isla, but we didn't do the islands yet. So the islands are next time. So that will be. Do we already have them? No, we don't. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there will be island whiskies. So
Yeah.
should we call it a day?
Yes.
A bit tired already. It was a long week. So yeah, that was it. If you liked the stream, then please give it a thumbs up. And yeah, we will see you on the 27th. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.